Ladies and gentlemen, I come before you today not just as a voice of reason, but as a witness to a seismic moment in American political history. The halls of Congress have echoed with fierce debates and fiery speeches, but few have hit as hard, as fast, or as unapologetically as what unfolded when Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett took the floor and dropped a political bombshell that left Donald Trump reeling. This wasn't just another jab across the aisle, it was a reality check soaked in truth, backed by evidence, and delivered with precision. For Trump, it wasn't just another bad day, it was the beginning of a nightmare. Jasmine Crockett, the bold and unflinching Democrat from Texas, stood with conviction, armed with facts and fire. Her tone was calm, but her words cut deep. She didn't come with vague accusations or political theater. No, she came with receipts, legal developments, witness testimonies, financial trails, and most shockingly, a whistleblower revelation that no one in Trump's orbit saw coming. She laid bare connections between Trump's PSE funds and alleged hush payments, questionable campaign expenditures, and a series of emails that directly implicated Trump's inner circle in what could only be described as a tangled web of corruption and cover-up. But what made it worse for Trump was not just what Crockett said, it was how undeniable it was. Every word was followed by a pause, not for drama, but for effect, giving time for her message to sink into the minds of every person watching. She detailed the mounting legal pressure surrounding Trump's financial disclosures, and how new subpoenas issued to former aides could pull back the curtain on potential election interference and obstruction of justice. And just when the room thought it couldn't get more intense, she dropped the name of a previously anonymous source, a former Trump campaign staffer, now cooperating with federal investigators, a name now protected under witness security, a name tied directly to decisions made in Trump Tower. Post-election, Trump, watching from afar, was reported to have erupted in rage. Sources close to him said he slammed a phone against the wall, blaming everyone but himself. But deep down, even he must have realized that this wasn't a partisan attack. This was a reckoning. Crockett didn't launch baseless insults. She pointed out discrepancies in Trump's campaign filings. Discrepancies his legal team is now scrambling to explain. The media, both conservative and liberal, couldn't ignore it. This wasn't sensationalism. This was the unraveling of a carefully protected narrative, and still, Jasmine Crockett didn't flinch. She addressed the GOP, directly challenging them to stand up not for Trump, but for the truth. She reminded them of their oath to the Constitution, not to a man, and in doing so, she forced a moment of introspection, even among Trump's staunchest defenders. Because this wasn't just about Trump's latest scandal, it was about how far our democracy could bend before it breaks. The nightmare for Trump isn't just legal, it's political. Independent voters are listening, suburban moderates are watching, the very base he relies on is starting to ask questions. Polls that once showed Trump with a commanding lead in the primaries are beginning to shift. The cracks are showing, and Crockett's speech didn't just reveal a scandal, it revealed a movement. A movement of accountability, of courage, of leaders who are no longer willing to cower in the face of Trump's wrath. It's worth noting that Crockett didn't call for vengeance, she called for justice. She made it clear that this isn't about political points, but about protecting our democratic institutions. She invoked the memory of past leaders who warned us that tyranny doesn't always come marching in with tanks, sometimes it creeps in with tweets, lies, and unchecked power. And in that moment, the contrast between her and Trump couldn't have been more striking. As Trump's legal team rushes to prepare for upcoming depositions, as federal agents follow up on new leads sparked by Crockett's disclosures, and as Republicans huddle behind closed doors in damage control mode, one truth stands tall: the age of impunity is cracking. The empire built on intimidation and denial is starting to crumble. The irony: Trump's downfall may not come from a courtroom or a prosecutor. It may come from the relentless voice of a congresswoman who refused to be silenced, who spoke truth to power with grace and grit. Jasmine Crockett didn't just expose Trump's nightmare, she became it. And for those of us watching, it was a reminder that even in dark times, the truth still has champions. History will remember the day Jasmine Crockett stood her ground, not as a moment of political theater, but as a turning point. Because after her speech, the question isn't whether Trump is nervous, it's how much longer he can run from the truth. And if today is any indication, he's running out of time. Jasmine Crockett's revelation about the whistleblower connected to Trump's inner circle sent shockwaves through Washington, and it's this single keynote that is likely to haunt Trump more than any courtroom drama or campaign misstep. This wasn't just a political maneuver, it was a moment where layers of deception started to peel back, not through partisan accusation, but through a methodical, well-documented, and pointed disclosure. Crockett, standing firm on the House floor, declared that a former staffer from Trump's 2020 campaign had come forward, now cooperating with federal investigators, with verified information tied to financial misconduct, campaign law violations, and, most notably, internal directives made directly from Trump Tower following the 2020 election loss. This wasn't hearsay or speculation, this was first-hand knowledge from someone who was in the room, involved, watching the dominoes fall from the inside. And the impact of this moment was not lost on anyone paying attention. What made this keynote so devastating was not just the content, but the credibility of the delivery. Crockett didn't shout. She didn't rely on emotional appeals. She leaned on documented reports, sworn affidavits, and a line of inquiry that had quietly been brewing beneath the surface for months. With a calm resolve, she revealed that this whistleblower had been under legal protection for the past 6 weeks, providing sealed testimony to federal prosecutors. The testimony, she said, contained timelines, email exchanges, and voice recordings that implicated members of Trump's campaign apparatus in discussions about redirecting funds, suppressing negative press, and even discussions around pressure tactics used on state election officials. This was not just a small leak, it was a floodgate opening. The implications were staggering. Trump has long dismissed whistleblowers as traitors or fabrications, part of some grand media hoax. But Crockett made it clear, this individual was no outsider. This was someone with direct access to campaign leadership, someone involved in high-level meetings, and most importantly, someone who kept records. The reason this hit so hard was because it broke one of the cardinal protections Trump had relied on: loyalty. The unwritten rule that no one from the inside talks. But now someone had, and Crockett didn't just mention it in passing. She placed it at the center of her speech, like a scalpel cutting through the defenses Trump had built for years. What followed was not just media frenzy, but legal escalation. Within hours of Crockett's statement, news outlets began digging, analysts began speculating, and Trump's legal team went into overdrive. The whistleblower wasn't named for safety reasons, but Crockett indicated that their identity would soon be part of a sealed federal filing, one that could be unsealed as early as the next court date in one of Trump's ongoing cases. This wasn't a rumor. This was a roadmap, and Crockett had just handed it to the American people. For Trump, this single keynote undermined one of his greatest illusions, the idea that everything against him is a witch hunt, all noise without proof. But here was Crockett, introducing a character from inside the very organization Trump built, someone who could verify the truth from within. And what's more terrifying for Trump, this whistleblower isn't alone. According to Crockett, there are more. Others who were silent are now watching, weighing their options, realizing that silence might no longer be safety. That Crockett knows this, and is confident enough to speak it aloud, means the walls are closer than they appear. But this moment wasn't just about exposing a witness. It was about sending a message to Trump, to his allies, to the public. Jasmine Crockett made it clear, the era of untouchable power is over. She turned what could have been just another day in Congress into a historical turning point. By choosing to speak with precision rather than partisanship, by rooting her words in documented legal processes rather than speculation, she gave the public something rare in politics: clarity. And in that clarity, there was power. Trump's response was predictable: rage, deflection, another angry post claiming victimhood. But behind the bluster, there's real fear, because someone broke ranks, and Crockett, with just a few sentences, made that betrayal visible. This keynote was the crack in the armor, the kind of revelation that weakens the foundation of Trump's legal and political defense. It signaled that loyalty can no longer be bought or enforced by fear alone. The illusion of control is breaking down. This single moment now lives in the minds of millions, not because it was dramatic, but because it was undeniable. Crockett didn't just introduce a whistleblower, she revealed that the truth is moving, building, aligning. The courts may move slowly, but public opinion does not. And in the coming weeks, as hearings continue, as filings are unsealed, as new names come forward, this keynote will be remembered as the point of ignition. It is a lesson in courage, in the power of standing firm even when facing giants. Jasmine Crockett didn't have to say everything. She said just enough to rattle the structure, to let Trump and his allies know someone inside the House turned on the lights. And now, the American people are watching what's in the shadows.